Hello and welcome back. In this video, we'll be going over our last part of our CRUD operation. So we've done our create, which is our insert function. We've done our update, which is our update function. And we've done our delete, which is our delete function. Now we need to actually do a read function. And we're going to approach this a little differently. So we're going to create a protected method called _read. What that's going to do is that's going to allow us to select a table and pass some conditions, a bind, an order, and a limit. If you remember, I've mentioned Curtis Parham several times throughout this course, and he's the guy that actually gave me the function for this. If you want to go check out his tutorials, he's got some awesome tutorials. They're on free code. Feel free to go and look them up, and I do encourage it. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a protected function. This protected function is called _read. Okay, so we're going to pass in a table and some params. And we're going to use an empty array so that way we can set different params. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to create some variables. That's going to be $condition string, and that's going to be equal to an empty string. And then we're going to say $bind, which is equal to an empty array. And then we're going to do order, again an empty string, and then sorry, my auto complete is starting to really anger me. Okay, so we have this limit, which will allow us to create, so order will allow us to order by, and limit will allow us to limit to whatever SQL. If you know SQL syntax, you would normally do something like select star from users, where the user name is equal to blah blah blah, and we want to order it by this, and we also want to limit to 3 responses, or 3 columns. And that's what this will allow us to do. We've got our condition string, which will allow us to pass an array of conditions. So what we can do is we can first check to see if it is set conditions, and we're going to require conditions. So if is set, and then $, or I'm sorry, that's actually params, not conditions. And we're actually checking the params array for a key called conditions. So if there is an array key actually called conditions, then all we're going to do is we're going to first check and see if that array key is an array itself. It should be is array, and this is conditions. Okay. Now, if this is not an array, all we're going to do is we're going to set the condition string equal to the array that's conditions here, or whatever this array key actually is. So $, and we're going to say condition string. There we go. Okay. Now, if this does come back as an array, then we're going to expect it to be an associative array. And so this will have 2 parameters, where we'll have a condition, and then we'll have the condition string. So what we can do is we can see if underscore array underscore key underscore exists. Sorry, I'm having some trouble there. And so if the array key for conditions exists, so we'll just say that this is we'll call this con. So if that array key exists, then we'll do params conditions, and then we'll call con. Well, or actually no, because that's not going to be an array. If statement like so. Okay. So if the array key exists con, we're simply going to say that $ condition. We'll say $con is equal to, and then $. No, not params. Yeah, params. $params conditions con. So what this will do is when we create a method, it'd be something like var num $db get instance, and then we'll create something like a find method, and this find we'll say we know we have a posts, and I think I inserted something into that post last time. So if I do something like we'll create the array outside, so $fields is equal to do condition like so, and then in this conditions we'll pass in, and this could be and or whatever you want. So you can do like and, you can say or, and so on and so forth. And I'm just gonna leave that there for now. And then you would do a condition. Well, you know what? We'll do parameters actually. And this would be another associative array. And this would be parameters like post ID, and we would say, actually this doesn't need to be associative. Actually, it might, yeah, you know what? It could be associative, because if we wanted to search a specific post ID, no, it doesn't need. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth trying to think the best way to do this. We can just do post ID like that, and then in our conditions array, which we've done our conditions here, we can create another array, and we can call this like bind. And then we would say bind is equal to, we do another array, and we can do you know, 1, which that is the first item in our array there. And we'd save it. It looks something like this. If we, and then we would pass fields through like so. In order for this to actually work, we need to do some writing here. So if array key exists, which you could ignore this con, but we cannot ignore, and we'll just say that $con is equal to an empty string if the array key does not exist. And then we're going to say if an array key exists params. No, we don't want to say bind. We're going to say that $condition string equals. Ooh, actually, no, we need to do a for each loop here. And then else $condition string. Well, actually, we don't need an else because our condition string will never be completely empty. So we don't have to do an else. But we do need a for each loop. For each And then we do $ condition params as key, and we won't have a key value pair, we'll only have a key, so we'll say $param. And so this for each loop, all we have to do is say that $condition string dot equals, and then we'll say pass in our double quotes, and we'll say space $. I think this would be the param. So, and then we'll pass in is equal to and a question mark, and then a comma, and then $, on, like so. So for each of these, which let me just add apostrophes, and I'll forget later. I have another error. Here I have an extra. Okay. So what this would look like is if we have multiple params here, this would be select star from, and then it would be select star from user or post underscore ID, where, and this would actually need to be a where something is equal to. So we'll take that from here, and we'll take this from here. See, what's the best way for me to do this? So we're expecting this to be select star from blank, where something is equal to question mark. I think that's where. So, sorry, a con. So it would be condition string is equal to, and so we keep looping through for how many ever. And then for each it would loop through. So if we'll do it would be something like select star from post, where post underscore ID. So that would actually be like this, equal to that. So I'm trying to think how it would actually be laid out realistically. So next we need to $condition string, and we're just going to set that equal to a trim condition string, and then we're going to do the same thing. $condition string is equal to an r trim condition string condition, which, let's see, would this actually, and it would actually need to look something like equal question mark. Actually, it doesn't need a comma. Okay, that's more or less what that would look like. So if we do oh, you know what? Actually, no, that's not what that would look like. I do apologize. What it would, because it would look something like select star from table where table underscore column equal to question mark and table columns equal to question mark, something like that. So you know what? Actually, it would actually need this well, question mark. So so yeah, we'll do it. We'll make it look like that. And then of course we'll test this to make sure it actually works. Because I am freehanding this, so you know there's bound to be some issues. Okay. So now if that does all if this conditions is here, what we can do is we can so this is on the outside of the conditions parameter, because if you remember we have our condition. This is our conditions parameter here, so this should actually be okay. We have our conditions parameter. Now we have a bind. Right. So all we're going to do is say if array underscore key underscore exists, we're going to bind or check for bind and then pass in our params, and then we're just going to say that bind is equal to params bind. And then we're going to do the same thing for order. And so all we're going to do is we're just going to say order by params order. And then we're going to do the same thing for limit, and then params limit. And so that's how we do that. Now we need to build up our selects. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say $SQL is equal to select star from table where, and then we'll say $condition string, and then order and limits, like so. And then what we'll do is if $this query SQL, and then we'll pass in that bind, which will either be an empty array or there will be something there. So if that does, we'll just return $this underscore results. And before I forget, I think I wound up changing. Yeah, I changed this query method to return this results and still set everything. Okay. Now going back to the read function. And then what we'll do is we'll just return false if this fails. Okay. So now let's create a find function. Public function find, and then we'll just pass the table params, and then what we'll do is we'll just return the read table. And you know what? Actually, let's well, you know what? This will turn true. Either the results are false anyways, so we can just leave that as is. And then if this works, we'll know. If there is not, appreciated, use var 131. 131. Oh, problem. So undefined fields, line 16. So what happens when you trying to go too quick? Does not match the number of tokens. So there's an issue with our bind. Let's actually echo $SQL and then we'll kill application. Make sure this looks like what expect it to. Select start from post where post ID. It's missing the question mark. That's because it actually, I think that erases that question mark. That's where I went wrong. There we go. So where post ID is equal to question mark. Perfect. So now if I were to go back here, and it is getting rid of that or, and I think that's because we don't actually have another post here. But what I can do is, let's just check and see if an ID exists. User ID is also equal to 1. Okay. Which we'll test this just to make sure it looks the way that I want it to. And we'll just do user ID, and then we'll do also 1. Save that, and let's just check and see what the SQL or user ID is equal to 1. Perfect. Now, go back, remove this echo and die. That's actually how I troubleshoot whenever something's not working. Unknown column, user ID. I have a feeling that this actually needs a comma. Before that, let me just get rid of this user ID just to check and make sure that that works. Which it does. Okay. So what I'm thinking is that there is an issue. We'll add that back just to make sure. Okay, so this says unknown column user underscore ID. Oh, that's post author, not user ID. Okay. So post underscore author. I save that. Right, there we go. So it, or we can also use and. So, we could also use like, and if we were to, we can do limit order that, but obviously we've only got one anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But if we do and we set the author to 2, as you can see, nothing comes back because our author doesn't equal 2. But that proves that this is working. So now that we've got the find method working, let's create a find first method. So the find first method will just return the first option. If we go back to our index and we actually make this work, you'll see that this comes back as an actual array of objects. So on our find first, we can actually say, hey, we want to only return that first object. So public function and then find first, $table, $params. We'll set that equal to an empty array, and then we'll just return $this underscore read table params 0. and that will always return the first result. So we've only got one result, but if we do find first, and all we do is we do posts, we don't actually pass any fields, which we can, but this will select everything in our posts. Oh, there's an error in the SQL syntax. Let's go and just check and see what the SQL that this is returning actually is. So SQL is equal to echo SQL and die. Again, a lot of this is actually freehand, so there are going to be errors. Ah, that's why. Okay. So what we'll do is say go up here because it is an SQL statement here. That does cause an issue. So what we'll do is we'll just empty $sign fine. Then what we'll do is we'll say this, but we'll remove this because all this will do is select start from table. If there's nothing defined, that's pretty much the only instance that will actually use that, so we can remove all of these. So now, if we go back, it only grabs that first item. And then if we do want to pass conditions, which we did make some changes, so let's just verify that that didn't actually make any issues with our code, which it didn't. Perfect. This is exactly what we want. So that find first method will allow us to find the first object that's returned, which if you don't know, we can do something like this, where we can do $post is equal to, and then we can do $post and then post name. And so this will grab. We can basically chain whatever the column name is to get the data from that column, and that's the benefit of doing it like this. So when we have a user, we can do user underscore username or whatever and it's written in such a way that it doesn't matter if you do like this, where I personally like to do the like post underscore and then whatever. If you don't like to do that, then you don't have to. But this is the way that I prefer to do it, and so that's it's written in such a way that you can do it either way. So you don't have to do that post underscore or table name underscore and then the actual table. I just happen to like doing it that way, so that's the way I do it. Okay. So I think this is where I'm going to end the video today. In the next, well, you know what? There's only a few more functions that we need to create. I think what I'm going to do is created some helper functions. Just trying to find the get table columns function. So I'm just gonna. I don't like where these read functions are. I want them to be with the rest of our CRUD operations. So I'm just gonna put that with CRUD operations, and then this get table columns. I'm gonna change this to public because I actually do want to use this outside of this class. So I'm going to use this get table columns outside of this class because I think I'm going to use it directly in the model. just because I want to list, if I want to list the table columns outside the model, or in models, I'm gonna give myself that option. Uh, Now I'm just going to create a whole bunch of basically setters and getters. So public function results, and that's just going to be equal to return this underscore results. And so what I'm gonna do is anytime I have this this underscore results, so we'll go up, and then what we'll do is return this and results. It's just technically you don't have to do this, but I think it makes the code look a little bit more professional. So I'm just gonna results. And this is kind of a long one, so just bear with me. And then we'll leave this results like that there. Okay. So now what we can do is we can do, well, I've already got that find first. I was going to create a first method, but realistically, I already have a find first. I don't need to create another first. But what I will do is I will create a count method. Public function count. And all we're gonna count. And all we're gonna do is just return this underscore count. And then that's not actually a function, it's a variable. And then what we'll do is we'll find out this count like so. So that's the first one. We'll leave that. We'll just change this to this count, and we may use that count variable outside of this class. So I'm gonna leave that as public function last ID, which we're actually not using this currently, but we'll use this outside. And then we'll just return this last insert ID. And then we'll do public function $error, and then we'll just return this error. And then what we'll do is we'll search for this underscore error. And anytime that we get an error or we check for an error, we go down. So we're setting this error to true. We're also setting the error true there. I guess we're not actually getting an error. Now, I could create a function that, you know what, we'll do get error, and then we'll also do a public function set error. By default, we'll say $error is equal to true. And then we'll just return this error is equal to error. And so by default, we won't have to pass anything through. But if we want to set error to false, so what we can do is just do this error. So, oh, that's because I said set error. Just copy that, go up, paste, go up, paste, go up, paste. Okay, so what we can do is when we create our model, we can just reference get error, and then if get error is set to true, then we can run code off of that. Okay, now with all that said, this basically completes our database class. In the next set of classes that we do, we're actually going to be building out our model class. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.